We can post the link to it.
I'm sorry, I didn't follow.
If people go to my Plus page,
Go to your Plus.
able to watch this. Let me see if I can get a link.
I mean, you're showing just fine here on the big display.
Okay. In case people on, on the online elsewhere on campus wants to see it, they can have this link too. Patrick had mentioned they might do that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You might want to switch your browser into presentation mode. I don't know if.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can.
But it's your slides are up there on the big screen. Yeah.
Is that full screen now?
Yeah, there you go. Now it is.
Okay. All right.
So we've got, it's 11:24, so there are a couple of people here so far. So we'll give it maybe a couple of minutes, and then you can start. The volume's up good.
Great. I will tell you, my about 6 minutes remaining.
Greg
cuts out.
I think he's on his way.
I'll have to. Okay. I'm going to mute myself for a second.
He's watching James and presenting. It's awesome.
Yeah. Amazing.
Does he live in Sherman?
Yeah. Because the kids are off. There's no school in Sherman ISD.
I think all the schools in town are closed. Just about. Yeah, but Virginia and Plano waited until the last.
Oh, they closed?
Did they? Yeah, they didn't want to post all the board.
Yeah.
I was surprised we didn't open until 1:30. I was glad. Oh, I was shocked. I was glad, but I was surprised. I got up on campus at 6:50. Oh my goodness. Well, because I was staying at Block River, so I was like, well,
You were surprised that it wasn't later, or are you surprised it was delayed at all?
I was surprised it was delayed at all. I'm glad it was, but I was surprised it was.
Ay, bueno, acabo de hacer eso también. Qué divertido, ¿no? Woohoo! Hey, look, it's Angel. Nice to meet you.
I can see Brett so clearly from here.
Well, that's important.
It's the aesthetics.
It's all about the aesthetic. Absolutely.
At least you have to say those shoes are pretty awesome.
These are my Papal running shoes.
Your Papal running shoes?
I don't understand that.
No, I don't.
Keep thinking.
Well, I know the red shoes. I mean, you got to come up with something more than the red.
I didn't even get
Plus, Francis doesn't wear red shoes. That was a Benedict.
Does he? He does.
The red shoes were a Benedict thing. Francis doesn't do that.
The previous Pope did.
Other folks.
To John II. I'm good. I stayed up in Sherman last night, so hence I am here.
Well, that's, you know.
I've decided I can actually live in my office if needed, as long as there's a shower in the building. But I stayed at Bert's house. I stayed at Betty and Benny's house.
Oh. Yeah.
Hello.
She's
Hi.
good. She's
Oh, this is
Maria.
great.
How are you?
I need to manage my email.
Well, very good.
Come to the right place.
You have come to the right place.
All right.
You know what my advisor does? She just screens it only out. She used to only write back like after the third one.
There you go.
There we go.
She just called her administrative assistant.
You can sign in. You're so
Do they even ask?
Oh, what did you?
Oh, yeah, clerk of the job.
I was wondering the
Review.
same thing. I don't know how it works.
One of the names.
It's like she owns the place.
First lady. First, what? Well, she's the president.
She is the person.
Does Larry get 3 meals?
No. Hey, Margaret's gonna be here.
Yeah.
You call everybody, but
Let's move your fructose and stuff.
it doesn't feel special anymore.
Waco voice.
Well, she definitely feels special.
Oh, you're sitting.
Well, I've used that little footboard ever since I started being a teacher. I love it. I used it when I taught. Yeah, but you started at such a high level. I only used it in my language lessons. So you didn't actually see it.
I don't remember.
And I lost it for a couple of years, and I found it again.
Yeah, but I didn't really understand for the first time. I think once I went to Spain, I was like, oh, now I know what everybody's saying.
Geez, thanks, Mom. Very kind of you.
I think that was
Thank you.
wow, that's service.
He's a good guy.
Well, this is just,
I'm a fellow runner. That's the only.
you know, we know we're gonna have overflow crowds, so we
Ah!
have to make sure all the tables have to be available.
No, I tried Symbaloo in my first lesson with the kids. They're like, I can't load the video. I'm like, oh, God, here we go. Not Symbaloo. Classroom Salon. We do too many software things.
Oh yeah.
So my senior, Jenna Longo, could not, the one that I pretended to work, could not load her videos. So I have them all joined now.
Could not load it up to YouTube or
No,
video?
they were using a YouTube video. Yesterday I just wanted them signed in and I wanted them to put in a URL.
Yeah.
But it kept saying the date was wrong, but everyone else was. So I said, I'm just like scaffolding it. Today we just load a video. Then what I think I'm gonna do is I set up one that they can all be in and I have them code the video. Like I'll post one and they code.
Oh.
I'll give them some tags.
Yeah, that's a good
Did you see Jennifer's using it?
Yes. Yes, I'm very curious to know how.
With their videos.
I think it's just it's going well, guys. This is good stuff. This is how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to share.
It's
Isn't
great.
that right, Roger? You gotta share, baby.
Yes. And I found a new product.
Sharing is
Can
caring.
I tell you?
Sharing is
It's a
caring.
product. It's called Edthena, because I went to a presentation when I went to that conference in Phoenix, and they're doing the same thing with the video. They're loading the videos, but it's a paid product, and they said they had no glitches. She goes, we
Wow.
expected so many glitches, but because it's a paid product, it's super easy, and you just drop the video.
Yeah,
Any
there are a
format.
lot. There are a lot of platforms out there. We now have one I just installed called Scalar. It's super powerful, but it could do this also. It could handle.
Longer video.
It could handle videos, and not only can you annotate a video with a video.
Oh,
You can annotate any object with any other kind of object.
should we be switching?
Audio. Well, let me get a little more familiar with it.
Okay. Well, Julia went to the one.
All right. Hey, everybody.
We hear you.
Great.
Give it about, there's a group coming, including Marjorie,
Okay.
about 3 or 4 more that I know of, so give it about 2 minutes and they should be in here.
Wow.
Well, like I say, we get about an hour left. So if I run out,
Your battery, okay.
I just switch over to my tablet and I'll lose the.
Okay.
But I don't think this stuff is going to take longer than 30 minutes anyway.
Okay. All right.
Hey, President.
You should.
And email is an old person's name.
It's definitely not a person's game.
Although, I was telling Rose, I was trying to teach them Twitter.
Exactly.
It's none of my kids.
No, they don't
None of
tweet.
mine.
They use Instagram.
Because
and
writing's too
I'm just going by my own children.
yeah,
Girls use Instagram, boys text.
Things are changing.
My daughter tweets.
On Jan term, there were all kinds of things they set up, and I definitely didn't want to be part of
Were they
that.
WhatsApp?
They were WhatsApp.
Well, Brett, I think
That was.
whenever you want to get rolling,
Okay.
get you started. So it's all yours.
Thanks, Mo. Welcome, everyone. Looks to me like we have sort of a smaller group than usual. I tell you what I'm going to do, Mo. While I'm doing this, I can hear myself. I'm going to mute you, and then I open it up, and I'll hear what you're saying. But
Right.
get in the middle of it. You can use the chat function.
Exactly.
Okay, so your sound is going off. I'm going to assume that people are listening to this. Makes sense. There you go.
You should be.
Okay, so everybody can hear me all right? Wave if you can hear me. Patrick, can you hear me? Great. All right, well, so today I wanted to talk a little bit about email. Email is one of those things where I think we think about it as something kind of, something valuable, but we sort of wonder if it isn't maybe old or if there aren't other technologies that will work better. You know what, Mo, it occurs to me, if I do this in full screen, I think we may have an issue with me not being able to tell when you need something. So I'm going to rearrange this slightly so that I can see the chat area in case it needs to be, and then we'll just, I know it won't be perfect, but I think this will be better if we present that way. All right, so back to it. So thinking about this question of email, and a couple of issues come up, right? A couple of key issues that we think about when we think about email. First of all, do I need to communicate with students and colleagues? Is email the best method, right? Yeah, of course you need to communicate with students and colleagues. There's no question about that. And in the world that we're in the liberal arts world, it's actually a lot easier for us in a lot of cases than for many people, because we have an opportunity to see our students face to face on a regular basis. You know, we see them, we get to know them, we develop relationships with them, and so we have a lot of opportunities to reach out to them and communicate with them things that we need them to know. And so the answer to the first question is yes. The answer to the second question is open. You know, it may be that email is not always the best thing, the best tool for you to communicate with your students, and it may be that that it is, or that in certain circumstances it is, or in certain circumstances it's not. I think one key takeaway from this discussion today is just that everyone has to figure out what works for themselves. And so for us, you know, each one of us individually has to kind of say, well, is this the best way for me to communicate with my students right now for this particular need? And it isn't always the same. Another key issue is, do I need to communicate with colleagues and students asynchronously? Or, you know, do I need to put information out there that they may not be receiving right at the moment that I put it out? Right, so we have various kinds of tools for this. Moodle, you can put things up on Moodle. There are web forums, there are other kinds of social media like Facebook and Twitter, all kinds of places where people can communicate. But email is technically an asynchronous medium, right? It is a medium that allows us to send a message when it's comfortable for us and receive messages when it's comfortable for the sender. So that's a nice thing about email, and is probably the reason why we call it email, because it's essentially like paper mail in that regard. Another key issue is, when I do use email, how can I maximize its value, right? I need to know if my choice is email, or I need to feel confident that if my choice is email, it's a choice that I'm making actively based on email compared to other kinds of tools that I could use, and that I am doing it because that's the best way for me to communicate with those I want to communicate with. This is a little chart from XKCD, which is a great webcomic, and this is not really a comic at all, right? There's no real humor to it, but he makes a point here that if you can kind of compare how much time you shave off a given task that you do all the time, like, oh, I don't know, say checking email, if you can figure out how much time you save each time you do it, and then how often you do that task, you can do a quick multiplication and figure out what is the maximum amount of time you can reasonably spend making the change to that routine task so that it's faster before it becomes counterproductive, right? So if you're going to save 30 seconds every time you check your email, and you check your email daily, then according to the chart, you could spend 11 and a half hours trying to figure out how to do that, how to save yourself 30 seconds, and it would still be worth it, right? So anyway, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, I suppose. No one's going to spend probably 8 weeks trying to develop some task just so that they can save themselves monthly time. But maybe if that task takes you a full day to do every time you have to do it, then maybe that's worth it. So this talk is sort of about that. This talk and discussion is about trying to think about ways to make email more productive for you, so that in your conversations with students and also with faculty and colleagues, you can reduce stress, become more effective, communicate more effectively, and so forth. So some common techniques for doing that. And this is what, we can talk about this later in the discussion part, but what are some ways that people tend to think about their email? The first one is folder management, and that's really just where you make folders and you put emails in them that make sense to you about things you want to keep and you want to follow up on, things like that. So I used to have folders that are related to, or labels in Gmail, and I'll talk about that in a minute, difference between Outlook and Gmail. But I used to make folders for things like each of my classes, and I'd have one for the department, and I'd have one for Austin College related stuff, and so forth, personal things. But it can quickly get overwhelming, and you can have tons and tons of folders. So the other three kind of techniques or approaches to email that I'm going to talk about briefly today are the next three bullets: getting things done, Inbox Zero, and the Trusted Trio, which is really just a version of Inbox Zero. Okay, so getting things done. It's more of a productivity philosophy. It's about, as the name implies, getting things done. And it's more about saying, okay, well, I've got so many things going on in my life. How can I organize them in a way that I can address them when they need to be addressed, but not lose things in the mix? So they sort of operate under these 4 Ds: do it, delegate it, defer it, or delete it. And what that's designed to do is reduce the kind of decisions that you have to make about each, in this case, email, right? If you apply it to email, you look at each email and you think, can I do this now? And usually it's a good idea to do it right when you get it, if you can. Should I defer it to a later time because I need more information, or because someone else needs to be brought into the conversation, or just because I don't have time to do it now? Should I delegate it to someone else to do, or should I delete it? And then sometimes it also includes archiving, which is just keep it, but in an archive place. In Outlook, you have the option to do both archive and delete. In Gmail, typically it's archived by default. There is something called the trash where you can send it and it'll go away forever, but Google tries to dissuade you from using that as much as they can. So, but the deleting is also important. Like if this email is no longer useful to me, and I don't anticipate that it will be, go ahead and get rid of it. Because there's a kind of psychological price that you pay for keeping it around, the sort of just-in-case price, which I think is why Gmail makes the archive function like a delete function. It goes away, you can't see it, you don't have to look at it, that kind of thing. So GTD is one. Inbox Zero and Trusted Trio are another two, and this is a little bit, yeah, deleting is your friend. That's so true. So inbox zero was exactly as it implies, that the procedure is, instead of sort of organizing things by the 4 Ds and kind of letting that be your guide, this is the inbox is for incoming material only. And so as soon as you've made a decision about it, you move it out of the inbox. And so the goal every time you assess your inbox as a task is to empty it. And I don't know, can we do a quick poll, and maybe Mo can type in the chat, how many of you, just how many messages about do you think you have in your inbox right now? Maybe just call it out and Mo can type them in. You don't have to put names on there. But yeah, I'm sure. I know some people keep a ton of messages in their inbox, and so one of the things we can talk about is, well, how do you deal with that? You know, how do you get to the point where you can actually even try inbox zero? But it's possible. One theory, and I think this is reasonable, we can come back to it if you want, is if you've got any message that's older than a month, just get rid of it. Because, and why would you do that? Because it's very likely that whoever sent it to you is not expecting you to reply. Right? If they haven't heard from you in a month, then they don't expect to hear from you. And as a consequence, you can safely get rid of that email. They will contact you again if they need you again. You know, so that's one way to think about it, and then you could work back through the ones that are just a month old and get back to zero. But that's the basic idea. Empty it every time you open it, and then there are a few folders and labels that you use to kind of organize that, like literally 3 or 4, just a few things. Trusted Trio is basically that, except the 3 folders are very specific. There's a follow-up folder, which is basically like a to-do list almost. Like, I need to do something with this email. There's a hold folder, which works like the delay it function from GTD, or the archive, or delete. That's it. Those are the only places where any of your emails should go. And so if you do that, then your follow-up folder becomes kind of like a to-do list. And I'll talk about other ways to use your email as a to-do list in a little bit. Inbox zero, Trusted Trio. Some other tips that you see around from people who feel like they really are managing their email well and would like to pass that along to us. Use the principle that if it can be addressed in 2 minutes or less, then do it. Just go ahead and do it right as soon as you're reading it. Because it's better to have that done, responded to, addressed, created, whatever it is that needs to be delegated, than to have it sitting in your inbox thinking, well, I'll get to it later. It'll only take me a minute. Well, exactly. That's the whole point. If it'll only take you a minute or two, go ahead and get it out of there. You don't need it in there. Treat your email like text. This is an interesting one. I don't do this, but I can show you a thing, a tool that I use that has some interesting info in it that's kind of addresses this. And that is, you know, texts are only allowed to be so many characters long, 140 or 160 or whatever. So if you treat your email the same way, but you count sentences instead, like 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences at the most, then you can deal with your email responses much more quickly. Just make yourself. A lot of this is about forcing yourself into a habit, and I know that's the big thing that a lot of people, you know, you might be asking yourself, well, how do I force myself to conform to a habit? Well, that's a great question, and I'm not sure anybody really knows the full answer. Maybe Aristotle. But habituation is a problem for all of us because we're human. But this is one of the things that if you could get yourself in the habit of writing emails that are generally 95% of the time 5 sentences or less, right there you'd save yourself a lot of time with email. If it needs to be longer than 5 sentences, then maybe you want to use a different communication tool. You know, maybe you want to call them up on the phone or seek them out face-to-face or something like that. Using filters to group messages by relevance. This is a cool tool that you can do in Gmail. It's called Filters. In Outlook, it's called Quick Steps. And I was just learning about this because I don't use Outlook, but the way Quick Steps seems to work is very similar to Filters. You say, okay, anytime you see a message with these criteria in it, it has these words in the subject line, or it does this kind of thing, or rules, I guess, is another thing, then do these things with it. You can have it do multiple things at once. Let's see. Try to confine email to batches on a schedule, right? Like, don't just let your email be open all the time, or if it is, put it in a place where you can hide it easily. Hide it behind, and that's the next one too, removing distractions. I have my email in a tab, and it has a number on it that tells me how many new emails I have, but it doesn't beep or have a pop-up or anything like that. I turned all that stuff off so that it doesn't distract me when I don't want to be distracted. Those notifications can be a real thing. But pick some times during the day when you're going to address email. Give yourself a window, like put it in your schedule. Say, this is when I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it sometime. A lot of people will do it twice a day, in the morning and then at the end of their workday. Some people do it 3 times. Give them a shorter period at lunchtime where they just check emails and get caught up. You may not feel that you can do just 2 or just 3 times a day, and that's all right. Again, it needs to work for you. But you need to think about it's best. It will work best. It'll be most effective if you think about limiting the number of times that you do it, and then when you do it, that's all you're doing. Then you're not being distracted by something else while you're checking email. It's just part of your calendar. Okay, those are some general things. How about specifics? So specific software, Outlook versus Gmail. This is kind of the big one. This is, and make a quick change there. Specific software is obviously going to change a little bit how you do things. But as you might guess, each one of them has built into them. I'm going to just talk about Outlook and Gmail, but Entourage is a version of Outlook that has not every feature of Outlook, but has some of them. And that's the one I'm least familiar with, to be honest. And I can tell you what I do later, but in Outlook, they're called folders, places where you can put emails, right, when you want to get them out of your inbox. In Gmail, the same exact thing is called a label, but it works the same way. Well, not exactly the same way, but you add a label to an email, and then if you say archive it, it'll be archived, but whenever you click on that label, you'll see all the emails that were labeled that way, just as if you had put it in a folder. So again, it's not, I'm misspeaking a little bit, it's not exactly the same. I would argue that labels are more functional than folders, but if you don't like that, that's fine. You can make your labels work like a folder, which is essentially what I do. Yeah, tags, as Mo said in the chat, is a better description, the way you tag things online. But I know a lot of people don't do that very often, so that may be less familiar. Folders is not a bad analogy. Quick steps or rules are things that you can, bundles of actions that you could tell your email program to take when you do this one thing. When one thing happens, several things can happen at once, and it can automate that process for you. In Gmail, they're called filters, and you can create filters that say things like, if this email has an attachment, put it in this folder, or if this email comes from Facebook, just archive it immediately. Don't have it go to the inbox at all. And then I will, and also put it in this label called Facebook. And so I can go look at these Facebook messages when I have time, but I'm not going to be distracted by them. That's a really good thing for what some people call gray mail. I've seen it at least once, but it's the idea that you get a bunch of emails like promotions, you get newsletters, you're on listservs for various groups that you participate in professionally, but you don't need to check every single day or even every single week. Those kinds of things will fill up your inbox, and but they are things you want to look at, just not immediately, right? You want to hold on to those. In the Trusted Trio, it'd go in your hold folder, and then when you have time, you can check that out and clear it out, but only after your follow-up folder is dealt with. Okay, what else? Some specific plugins and extensions that can help. These two are, I'm only aware of things that work with Gmail, but Boomerang is a cool tool that lets you delay a message in various ways. So you can compose a message, and then instead of sending it immediately, you can have Boomerang send it tomorrow or next week or on someone's birthday or whatever. There are ways that you can use Boomerang to send things at a later date. You can also, and this is really great for Inbox Zero and for Trusted Trio, is to tell the message that as something comes in and you look at it, you say, I cannot deal with this now, and I know I won't be able to deal with it for a week. So you tell Boomerang to take it out of your inbox and basically resend it to you in a week. So it goes out of your inbox, but it will come back automatically on the date that you set. So that's kind of neat. It helps you, manage email in a certain way. Better Gmail is just a whole bunch of little Gmail tweaks that help Gmail function more effectively. Different kinds of things like how much space is between each message and different kinds of keyboard shortcuts, and there's all kinds of things, little things that are all kind of packaged into one set of things. So I thought, that's just really like a quick overview. I thought we might get people talking about, A, what are your most pressing problems with email, and then B, or secondarily related to that, what are some things that people are doing that they like, people in the room find effective with their email, right? So getting some crosstalk going, and then I'm happy to share more details about my specific kind of setup if you want, but I think the best thing for this kind of thing is to hear from lots of people. So with that, I'm going to unmute you guys on my end, and we'll. Well, no, wait a minute. I may not be able to unmute you. Do you have an unmute button on your end? How does this work?
Now we're good.
Wait.
Yeah. Okay, guys.
Sandy's got a question.
Sandy's got a question.
So I would love to delete. Usually it's a thread or a conversation, but then Gmail will be, they will synthesize it for you. But is there a way in Outlook or Entourage to do that? I can't really delete the email to it generally writes back with a
I'll tell you, it's hard for me to hear the audio's looping back through. I don't.
So maybe how to do threads of conversations in Entourage or in Outlook.
No, could you type? Threads. Yeah, there's a way to thread in Outlook. I was watching a video tonight where the guy did that. There must be setting something.
Yeah.
Anybody else know how to do that?
Yeah, I use conversational threads in Outlook, and then it will give me an alert if I'm going to delete a specific email and ask me whether I want to delete the entire thread or just one email in that conversational thread.
So do we just set that up for one of the settings?
I have to remember how to do that, but I could probably figure out again how to do that. But I find that very helpful, particularly.
If you get that in Outlook, you'll get a walkthrough.
Yeah, threading
Microsoft
is awesome. From Gmail. It makes it seem like the way they're conversation. The biggest thing you have to worry about. Sometimes someone will add right after sometimes they don't know the consequences.
Video, that'll get more
What else? Do you have?
Can you repeat the difference of about the three trusted friends? I've been a GTD follower for many years, with more or less rigor at different times in my life. But I like and so I do try and aim for Inbox Zero once a week. I never fully achieve it. I think it's a Zen state, but I aim for it at least once a week. But the three trusted folders or something, can you tell me again a little bit about that, and how do you see that as compared to getting things done?
Sure.
Trusted Trio.
Yeah. So Follow up.
It's hard to really understand him that way. So, is there a way to mute it?
Did you? Me now? I don't want to step on anybody. Mo just muted you guys on your end. Okay. Yeah, so you've got follow-up, you've got the hold, and you've got the archive. And again, there's a built-in archive, or essentially because there's no delete, there's an archive in Gmail. But in Outlook, you would create an archive folder, or it might already be set up as an archive, I forget. But you can create a new folder for each one of those three things, right? And then when you're looking at each one, instead of thinking about doing it, delegating it, deleting it, it's a very similar process, but it's about do I need to follow up on this email? Is there some action that I need to do that can get this email out into the archive? Because that's ultimately what it is. Everything goes to the archive eventually, but follow up and hold are just the other two ways that you treat email. So follow up is there's some action that I need to do in order to get this email into my archive. Right, and that might be that I need to forward it to someone, which could work as a delegation, or I need to get someone else involved in the conversation, or it might be that I need to write a response, or whatever it is. Your email, you're just dealing with that one email, and you have to follow up in some way. Then the hold is for all those things that you get that you're not ready to archive, but you can't follow up on it right now. You can't. There's something that you need to hold on to it for. A lot of times, like I said, those are things like newsletters and things that have more reading involved. In Inbox Zero, a lot of times people will use Read as a separate folder and put things into there that go. But in the case of Hold, it might be something like the faculty gets emails from Sheila all the time saying, hey, on such and such a date that's 6 weeks from now, I need some response from you, or by such and such a date. And I need to get more information from the department before I give her a response, so that's going to be a couple weeks out, and she's got a deadline that's 6 weeks out anyway, so I could put that kind of thing in a hold folder and then come back to it later. Whenever my follow-up is kind of taken care of and those have been archived, I can peek into my hold and see what's in there that maybe I haven't looked at in a while. I'll use the star function in Gmail to do that sometimes, to do something like that, even though I don't do Trusted Trio, but I'll star it if it's something from Sheila that I have a long date on, or someone else. In Outlook, there are flags. And you can use flags that way, right, to just say, okay, this goes in a category that is things I need to follow up on. But you could also just make a folder called Hold. And then there's the archive, which is, again, where things go when you don't want to do either of those two other things. If you're using Outlook, Gina Trapani, who really is created the Trusted Trio method, worked for Lifehacker, and she's a big Gmail person. In fact, she wrote a lot of those better Gmail scripts that I mentioned. So she's big into Gmail, and that's all she uses. But I would imagine if she was an Outlook user, she'd probably replace archive with delete. Once you have dealt with it, get it out of there. Because it's not about, I think what's nice about the archive in Google is that it creates a personal little file folder of correspondence and stuff, and maybe someday later you go back and look at it, but sometimes that's really saved me when I find an email from 3 months ago that was relevant to something I was otherwise going to have to ask the person to tell me again because I'd forgotten. But I will say I have a lot of emails in my archive folder that probably should just be deleted because I'm never going to look at those again. Yeah, Mo says it's also very easy to search in your archive for things. Gmail makes it very easy. I don't know, what are people's experiences with search in Outlook? Because I really like using the search function in Gmail, but What do y'all have you? I know it is searchable, but how does that work very well? And I can't hear you guys right now. What else? What else do you want to talk about with email? How many of you think that you might try? Oh, how many of you are thinking, I'm not going to do inbox 0 because there's no way I can get to a starting point? Okay. Yeah, you want to type them in maybe? Yeah, let me find that thing I was mentioning earlier. I have an sort of an app that runs in my Gmail called I think it's called Gmail Meter, and it goes in and tracks a bunch of things that I do in email and just gives me like a monthly report of what happened over the previous month. Let me share that screen with you real quick. No. So this is the thing, Gmail Meter. This was my Gmail Meter for February, and one of the things that is interesting, it tells you, top recipients. That's probably no. I don't think there's anything super personal in here. I just realized, but no, it's all very generalized content. But here's, for example, it shows me it averages over the day. When do I normally send email? This is the red, and when do I receive in blue? And it's what you would think, right? Between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. is mostly when emails come in, although there's an interesting spike of received emails in the evening. Who are those people? Probably students. Although a lot of you I know do email in the evening too, and I do some, you can see that. Monthly traffic, again, it sort of varies by the weekdays, so that's not super helpful. But here's some of these are interesting. Weekly traffic, which days are the biggest? Of course, Monday through Friday is bigger than the weekend. I send more emails on Monday, or sent in February, than I received in the month. This is, again, how much I've archived versus how much is in labels and how much is in my inbox. That's that tiny little sliver there. I'm with you, Marjorie. I don't get inbox 0 all the time either, but I try. Thread links, this is always kind of a power law, or sort of roughly a power law distribution like that, with few of them being very, very long and most of them being very short. Top threads. Here's the two I wanted to or the few I wanted to show. Time before first response. I'm in red. I answer in red, and I get replied to in blue, right? And so the big difference here is most people are replying within a day or less. You can see that 30%, 32%, and down. But I do have the less than an hour and within 5 minutes, I have a larger percentages on, and that allows me to have fewer at this high end, right, than most people. So my curve is a little differently shaped than others. But this is the one I wanted to draw your attention to, because mine is very different than most people, right? And this is what I was saying about 5 sentences and doing it in 2 minutes. Most people, the curve is, as you can see, the majority of messages are between 100 and say, more than 100 in length, right? The majority is here on this side. But mine is the opposite. Mine is the majority of my emails are less than 30 words. And I think that's one of the things that helps me be more successful with email. But again, you have to be kind of comfortable. I think if you can deal with this issue of length, then that can help you deal with this issue of turnaround time, or ping length, right? Like how long does it take for it to come at you and come back out? I think, and so with regard to students, I think students probably have some expectations, but I think you'd be surprised. I think if you can be getting them some kind of message, even if it's a short, like, I got it, let's talk about it in class message within the day, I think they're fine with that. And if it takes longer because you need to reply, you need to think about it a little bit, then you can say that, right? You can say, quickly, I need to think about this a little bit more. Let me get back to you in a couple days. Put it in your follow-up folder if you're using Trusted Trio or Inbox Zero, and then you have it there on your to-do list and give yourself, give it whatever it is. I think the biggest issue is when students aren't sure if you even got the email. And so they're just kind of wondering, obviously there are some students who think that it's so urgent and all that, but I haven't really had many issues. Let's see. When should students expect you to respond? But some don't want to have to respond to emails immediately. Some in the room. I get that. And again, I think that's the kind of thing that you can sort of lay out. I'll tell you one thing that I think a lot of people don't realize, or it's not that we don't realize it, but we're not thinking about it. But I don't think students think that email is particularly important as a stream of communication, except to communicate to us. So in that regard, I think they think that it's kind of like our little communication stream. So some of it is educating them about that, helping them to understand that they're not the only ones that we use our email for. We have all kinds of contacts and colleagues and people we need to talk to. I think if you explain to them what your expectations are, say at the beginning of the semester in the syllabus, that usually they're comfortable with that, or at least mine have been. But then I guess I have a tendency to respond relatively quickly, so maybe it's a self-fulfilling kind of thing for me. But no, I don't think you should feel that you have to respond within the day. I just think it turns out to be more effective. It sort of greases the wheels of that communication, right? Again, this is in the broader context of communication in general, right? I know you want to be communicating with your students. You want them to know the things that are important to you about the class and about their relationships with you. But then it's just a question of how do you communicate that? The question was, do I text with students? Not generally. I do give my cell phone number to my production students, but I do that because they are often in situations where a piece of equipment is not working and they're on set and they have their actors there and they need to really know the answer right now and they can't wait until the end of the day. It'll be way too late. So I give them my phone and I tell them if it's an emergency, especially a technical problem, give me a call. But I tell them that they're the only students that I give it to and that I don't give it to my other classes. I mean, it's possible that it gets shared around anyway, I don't know, but I don't really care about that so much, but I just want them to know that it's for them for emergencies when they have problems like that. But yeah, some people do. Facebook is another thing. I don't know if there's anyone. I think we've had this conversation maybe in the past, but we've got new people, so it might be good to go over it again. But how many people are willing to become Facebook friends with their students, and how many feel like it's a private, personal thing and they don't want to do that? Is there a mixture in the room, or is there general consensus that it's a no on Facebook? Mm. Yeah, assuming that everything is public. I mean, I'm not sure that that's technically true, but because Facebook is always changing, it seems, the way that they manage what's visible and to whom, I don't think that's a bad. It's probably a little too broad, but it's not maybe not a bad rule of thumb. Um, you know, things can get kind of shared around in a way that you might not expect, and then also, you know, if I am friends with a student on Facebook and that student is in a class with a colleague and is friends with that colleague, I may not and I'm not friends with them for some reason, I may not realize that that person is seeing my post because the student is a friend, and so it's friend of a friend and all that. But yeah, there's definitely an issue there. Yeah, professional versus personal, that's interesting too. You know, Erin Cobblesmith does the Teaching Media Facebook group, and she uses that for professional things. And that's a really active group, but you know, and that sort of overlaps. I don't know, because it's a group. I don't think things that get posted in her feed can be seen by the members of the group. You know, it's sort of, there's a wall that exists between the group and her personal feed, I think. Or maybe you have to set it up that way, I'm not sure. But, you know, I don't see personal posts from people who are in that group that I'm not friends with. There are thousands of people in that group, or hundreds anyway, and I don't constantly see that stuff in my feed. So I must have it set up so that I don't see that, or they have it, or something like that. I guess Facebook is kind of a, you know, a morass of of privacy issues. Yeah, other questions or comments? I've got I'm 9 minutes remaining on my battery. I managed not to bring home my my brick. Question about formality versus brevity of emails. Well, one thing that the people who recommend the 5 sentences approach recommend is to link to this website that's called 5.sentences, although there's a period between the C and the E. So it's 5.sentenc.es, and basically it just explains this procedure that, look, I'm trying to be more efficient with email, and so that's why I'm sending you brief messages. You know, and please don't be offended or something like that. There's some language there that you can kind of put, and you can put that in your SIG, you know, in your email signature file, so that it goes with every email you send. That's one way to deal with it. I do think it's possible to be more formal and still be brief. It just may mean that you, again, with 5 sentences, you should be able to say what needs to be said to get a conversation going. I don't adhere to that philosophy, but yeah, I think it's possible to use email in a more formal style, but still have shorter exchanges. But I guess that's your mileage may vary, right? You sort of have to get used to that. The use of CC, yeah. What about it? It's great when used effectively. I don't know. To me, the larger question might be the reply all, right? Like realizing that there is such a thing as a CC, and when every time you read an email, get it in the habit of looking to see who was CC'd on it before you reply. because sometimes we accidentally send things out to a larger group of people than we anticipated. But CC is really good for for managing for making your process more efficient, right? In terms of not sending the same message. I think in general it's a good idea, and other things on other productivity folks will back me up on this. I think that if you have two separate issues that really are separate things, it's a better idea to write two emails than to try to roll them into one, because as those two messages get passed back and forth between you and the person you send it to, and then possibly it gets forwarded to someone so it can be delegated or followed up upon, then you get into issues where someone doesn't understand what the context of it is because it's mixed up with a bunch of responses, especially if you're using threading, mixed up with a bunch of responses that were to the other issue. So two separate emails would be better than one. But if everyone on your CC list needs to know this information, then it's great. Also BCC, right? Like blind copy means that nobody on the distribution knows anyone else on the distribution. So I do that sometimes, like if I have 3 students who have had a number of absences and I want to let them know, hey, you're kind of getting close to the edge, I will BCC the 3 of them and write a form email that says, you've got several absences, see me, or something like that. Or what are you going to do about it? It keeps the privacy of those details that really are not relevant to the other students, but it also allows me to keep from having to write 3 emails, even if they're short. And it saves me a few seconds. Back to that XKCD thing. If I can save a few seconds and I do that every single time, that can be a lot of time over a long span. I tell you what, Mo, I don't know if somebody was about to talk or not, but as I said, I'm getting a little low on battery, and I'm actually going to be on campus later, as it turns out. I probably could have. It just didn't. I didn't know this morning if it was going to work out, and that's why we decided to experiment with this. So a couple things, just final thoughts from me. First of all, on this topic, you all should feel very comfortable coming to chat more with me or with Mo about this issue, and we can, if we're not sure what the answer might be or how to do something, this particular thing in Outlook or something like that, we can find it and we can do the research for you and figure it out. But I really encourage you to think about ways that you can make your email more efficient. If it's that issue about how to get rid of all your emails in your inbox, like I said, the older than a month tip is a good one, and then work from there. But secondly, I wanted to say that you're welcome to, as always, come chat with me or Mo about anything relating to digital pedagogy. If you have some specific thing that you want to talk about, I'm happy to chat with you about it at another time. Or you can send me an email, and there's a decent chance that I will respond to it within a day, according to Gmail meters. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Bye.